We are waiting for everybody to join the webinar. Excited to have everyone here. Please know this is going to be interactive. There's a Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. We're also going to be doing some polls. So when you see the poll pop up, don't click it off. There's going to be an opportunity for us to kind of learn who's here today. A couple more seconds. I know more folks are coming in. Welcome, welcome. So excited to have everyone. One more time, there's a Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen where folks can post questions throughout. And we're also going to be starting with some interactive polls so we can learn about who is here today and get started with this exciting topic. So without further ado, I am going to pass things over to CEO and President of the Latino Policy Forum, Sylvia Puente.
Hello, everybody. So glad that you're here and really want to thank you for taking the time to hear about the Illinois Latino College Landscape Study. So this is a new area of work for the Latino Policy Forum. And I think that most of you know that we have focused our can we keep this off until I'm done speaking? Thanks. Focused a lot of our education work on early education and language policy for English language learners. So this is launching a new path to look at college access and completion. And what we're doing today is we've collected so much research with our partners that are here with us on the call from IWERC that we want to share with you. But we'll be pulling out a fuller report in the fall with actual recommendations. So none of this work can be done without financial support. So I really want to thank the generous contribution of the Crown Family Foundations, the Joyce Foundation, the Vivo Foundation, the Staines Family Foundation, the Fry Foundation, and the next one. Wanted to share with you a little bit about our education vision. And that really is that all Latinos and ELs, English language learners, have equitable educational opportunities across the education spectrum, leading to economic prosperity. So there are several reasons why we really have embarked on expanding our education agenda. We all know that COVID exacerbated college enrollment, retention, and graduation disparities, especially for low-income students. They've had difficulty navigating the college admissions and completing their FAFSAs online. Many have increased familial responsibilities. And in fact, there was a survey that came out at the beginning of COVID that said that 50% of Latinos 18 and older changed or canceled their college plans, compared to 26% of whites as of May 2020. So basically double the rate of students who were stopping out of college. We know that there are continued equity concerns and shortages across many fields, including having a pipeline of educators, mental health professionals, STEM workers. All of these things demand that we support Latinos to enroll and successfully complete college. And finally, we know that Census 2020 marks the continued growth of the Latino population across the US and the nation. And we know, regrettably, that Latino adults still have the lowest levels of college completion, right? So all of these things really make it imperative that we address the college pipeline leak. So to ensure that the forum moves into this space with integrity and knowledge, and in partnership with other organizations, we initiated a college landscape study. I really want to thank and acknowledge the work of Dr. Gudalia Lopez, who is the principal of Lopez Strategic Solutions, who has really been guiding and help us lead this effort. She's going to share more about the advisory committee that we convened to help lead this work, as well as the number of individuals that we interviewed and students that are being impacted by not being able to finish college. And I especially want to take a moment to give a special recognition to those that co-chair this advisory committee with me, Juan Salgado, who's our chancellor of city colleges, and Jesse Reeves, who's the former deputy governor for the state of Illinois for education, but also now general counsel and chief compliance officer of the Vishtier Group. really want to thank them for their leadership on this as well. So now I think we want to move to that poll because we want to see who is here. If you could respond to the poll for us. And then after that, Dr. Gudalia Lopez is going to begin to lead us through some of our findings. So you see here, what's your role? And I think if you continue to scroll down, there are 3 questions. You can respond to the questions. We'd appreciate that. And if you have any issues, please go to the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. So do we have the poll results? Do we know how many people have responded so far? Great. So you can see we have a good number of, could use a few more students. A good number, majority are first generation students, and a good number of you attended a 4-year college. So thank you, we really appreciate that. And now, Dr. Lopez.
Thank you, Sylvia. As Sylvia mentioned, the forum wanted to have a deeper understanding of Latino college going in completion in Illinois. I will now share the planning goals and the landscape study questions. This study is situated within a planning process that will help the forum develop its advocacy agenda. Thus, you will see some overlap. I would also like to acknowledge that there is significant research on factors that facilitate college going and completion, and there is data on how Latinos are doing in higher education in Illinois. However, this information was not synthesized in one place for Illinois Latinos. The Latino Policy Forum needed this comprehensive picture in order to begin to identify and prioritize its advocacy agenda in this space. So the planning goals are to identify the status of Latinos regarding college preparation, course taking, immediate college enrollment, college retention, GPA and majors in college, college completion and transition to work in Illinois and nationally. To learn about the issues faced by Latinos regarding college preparation, retention, their academic experience in college and completion, as well as transitioning into the workforce. Prioritize college readiness and completion issues for forum advocacy that promotes systemic policy and practice, and to engage stakeholders in the forum's college advocacy. These are the landscape study questions that we address with our partner IWERC. Some of these are touched on by both the literature review conducted by IWERC and the focus groups done by me. And the last 2 were primarily addressed by the focus groups and targeted interviews. So the first question, what is the status of Latinos in preparing for, enrolling in, and completing college in Illinois and nationally? What are the barriers and opportunities they face as they prepare for, access, and complete college? What could our education system do to support Latinos prepare for, access, and complete college? And what organizations are already in this space in the state of Illinois, and what are their focus areas and strategies? Now I'll share a little bit about how this all fits together. So first, we start with the literature reviews conducted by IWERC on high school preparation, college enrollment, college completion, post-college employment, and the stakeholder focus groups and interviews. As Sylvia mentioned, we convened an advisory committee. This group was composed of 43 members. Among these, we had 7 university and 4 community college presidents, chancellors, 7 P12 district superintendents, CEOs, the overwhelming majority of whom are leading institutions and districts serving the largest number of Latinos in the state, 10 nonprofits, including college access organizations, community service organizations, and higher education advocacy organizations, 3 individuals from the business sector, a legislator, and 2 college students, one of whom had transferred from a community college to a 4-year institution. The role of the advisory committee was to provide feedback on the study and to assist in identifying the key barriers and supports for Latino college access and completion. All of this helps the forum develop its advocacy agenda and publish a brief for public consumption and use, which we'll be sharing in the fall of 2023. So now I'll move on and I will turn this over to my colleagues from IWERC who will share the status of Latinos, the factors that influence college going and completion, and importantly, you will hear students and parents' voices in their part of the presentation, many from the focus groups I conducted with Vanessa Peña at the Latino Policy Forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cordelia. And before we jump into our overview of all of our findings from the landscape study, I do want to note that you'll hear from me, Meg, and from Mariana today, but we had a very wonderful team that worked to put together this, this report and this work. And we had Ramona and Fructoso from UIC who were so helpful with their knowledge of the college space for Latino students. And we also had two other team members from IWERC, Judith and Stephanie, who contributed a lot to our quantitative analysis. So I wanted to acknowledge them. And with that, we'll jump in. So first, just to set some context, it is critical to understand how the education landscape is changing in Illinois. And I just want to show this graph. So this is looking at births in Illinois in the blue line. And this is starting with those born in 2000. So those folks were the class of 2018. They were high school seniors in 2018. And then you see on the other end what we expect for the class of 2038 based on births in 2020. And then below the blue line, you see the black line is the current senior class and the information we have on senior class enrollments in Illinois public schools. And then the gray line is what would be expected for those enrollments if a linear trend held. And what you see here is that we are going to face a substantive and sort of unprecedented for many decades decline in the number of students in our senior classes. And so you see here, what effect will that have on college? So here the gray line shifts. All the other lines are the same, but the gray line here is freshman Illinois public college enrollment. So who is enrolling in our Illinois four-year colleges? And you can see that it's a pretty small sliver of our overall high school senior population. And so I think the point here is that what we can expect is that there will be fewer seniors in our high schools and there will be fewer college students in Illinois overall. Now, of course, that could change. These are projections. We could have migration into the state at levels we haven't seen before. But because of these declines, we are likely to see changes in how our K-12 and college institutions structure themselves. And so with that, we have an opportunity. This is an opportunity to think boldly about how we serve our students now and in the future. And one area we want to think about serving our students is serving our Latino students in the state. And so one way to frame this issue, as Sylvia talked about earlier, regrettably low attainment levels for Latino adults. Historically, we can see here that Illinois and the data are pretty largely the same for nationwide. We can see that Hispanic or Latino individuals have lower attainment rates of associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, and graduate degrees. So we have associate's degrees in green, bachelor's degree in this light blue, and graduate degree in this darker blue. And so this is the Hispanic and Latino population as compared to overall. And these attainment gaps are no accident. They're the results of disparities that we see at every step along the way. And I'm just going to walk through this so people understand where we are statistically in Illinois. So in terms of high school graduation rate, Latino students have a slightly higher graduation rate than Black students and a lower graduation rate than white students. Latino students are going to be here in this green column throughout. And then that translates to a lower college enrollment rate than white students, although it's slightly higher than for Black students. And then interestingly, you see here that Latino students who do go to college are about evenly split between 2-year and 4-year institutions. And so one thing to note is that Latino students are enrolled in 2-year colleges at about the same rate as white students, but because their overall college going rate is lower, The 4-year selection rate is quite a bit lower than for white students. Interestingly, for Black students, they have a preference shown here for 4-year enrollment for those who attend college. And then here are some factors that relate to college success once enrolled in college. So we see that Latino students have a slightly higher placement in developmental education courses in Illinois public colleges than white students. And they have a pretty robust first-year retention rate in Illinois public colleges. So a tick below what we see for white students, but pretty strong. Now, sophomore retention rates are a different story for all populations. They are quite a bit lower. And then finally, we'll end with graduation rates. So we see that community college graduation rates are fairly low across the board, and for Latino students, around 25% in Illinois, which is lower than white students who are almost at 40%. Much stronger for 4-year public university and private nonprofit graduation rates. So we see we're above 50% here. Again, for white students, it's substantially higher. And then the for-profit graduation rate is lower than what we see for our public and private nonprofits, although Latino students do have the best for-profit college graduation rate of all. So these are some contextual statistics that will help us as we talk, help us frame as we talk through some of the factors that influence college enrollment and persistence. So before we jump into those factors, we just want to make a statement, framing this a bit and making some things clear, that there's nothing inherently better about any education level, not going to college, or your college choice. And of course, individual choices should always be supported and respected about educational attainment. But the reason that we are here is that different education levels do confer different economic and social benefits historically. And the vast differences in attainment that we saw in some of these previous slides suggest that there are systemic and structural disparities for different groups that should be addressed. And so the goal of this work and conducting this study is to build a system in which all students have the same opportunity to make their individual choice. And so with that, I will turn it over to Mariana to walk through the first few of our 6 key factors.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so we're going to start with what are the key issues regarding college enrollment completion and the consequences of that. So the first one is academic preparation for college. And we're going to get started with one of the quotes here from the students that were part of the interviews and or focus groups. It says, once I enrolled in college, I realized that I was ill-equipped to tackle college level courses. It felt like I was always playing catch up. And I think this is important because it conveys the feeling that is result of a broader picture of lack of access to rigorous course taking. As we can see in this table, in Illinois, there were gaps in rigorous course taking for Hispanic or Latinx students in the school year 2018, which is the most recent data we currently have access for. ISB data show that Hispanic student participation in AP courses has risen dramatically from school year 16 to school year 21. And it increased from 20% to 26%. And for dual credit courses, it increased from 16% to 22%. However, they still remain below those their counterparts who are from white race ethnicity. Another indication of limited access to rigorous course taking is SAT test scores. So we can see here that for SAT, participation rates do have improved, and so that has an effect on trends. But overall, we can still see that Hispanic students perform consistently below their white, Asian, and multiracial peers. Well, we understand and we agree that SAT scores are measuring a limited scope of attitudes and knowledge. We also want to recognize that there are studies that do map the relation between quality intellectual work and the relationship to test scores. So it is a reflection of access to rigorous course taking. And this is the reason why we wanted to highlight these trends. And this takes us to key issue number 2, which refers to high school counseling and other types of support that promote college enrollment. And we're gonna get started again with a quote. I think the mentoring is crucial and having these conversations early. I don't think that necessarily happened early enough for me. I had friends in high school that already knew where they were going to apply, what they needed to do, and their parents already had college funds. I just don't think that conversation particularly maybe happens early enough. And so this highlights the need for counselor and guiding on where, when, and how to enroll to college. The first step to achieve these are teachers. Teachers of color matter for students' post-secondary enrollment. The literature has shown that having a teacher of the same racial background in high school increases the likelihood of college enrollment for both Black and Latinx students, especially in STEM fields. Specifically in Illinois, K-12 Hispanic enrollment has grown exponentially, or importantly, from 19% to 27% from just 2007 to 2022. But the proportion of Hispanic teachers has only grown from 5% to 8%. And this has a teacher-student mismatch as a consequence. So teachers are retained at a higher rate in high schools with more Hispanic students, ranging from 89% in all schools to 91% in a majority of Hispanic schools on average. There is also this relation in terms of counselors, right? So if we account for all districts that are served K-12 schools, we observe that as the percentage of Hispanic or Black students in the school rises, the student to counselor ratio rises as well. And in fact, it's the opposite for white students. However, when we account only districts that are serving high school, just high schools, which is when these decisions are making, the majority serving Hispanic and Black schools have lower student to counselor ratios than majority serving white schools. So this has implications, and a recent article from 2021 in Chalk Beat, Chicago, showed that the ratios of Chicago elementary and high school counselors to students are higher for majority Latinx schools than for other schools, including majority Black schools. And overall, there were 277 students per counselor in majority Latinx high schools in Chicago, which has not only a consequence of the number of students one counselor has to oversee, but also there is a racial mismatch between Chicago counselors and the students that they serve. So in our literature review, what we found is that external partnerships can be used to increase college-going knowledge and support, and that schools can also leverage these partnerships in passive and active ways, such as school brokering, for example. So now that we discussed what happens to get to college, we are now going to talk about what happens once students are enrolled in college. And this brings us to key issue number 3, which is navigating college environments. So let's take a look at this quote. The one thing is, I had to be the person who connected with my academic advisor versus having that check-in aspect. I understand that it's a college setting, you're becoming an adult, you're figuring it out, you're navigating those things. But I do think that might be where some people could struggle in a class and then drop out because they don't feel that support unless you actually do the reaching out yourself. And this highlights something that we want to talk about and that we found in our lead review. And that is that Latinx students report a lack of readiness for understanding how colleges work. What are the transfer expectations? What is supposed to be the role of faculty, the advisors, counselors, how to reach them, how do we connect with them? And this is because a lot of times our families don't have this type of college-specific navigational capital. In a lot of cases, we are the first one to attend college. Also in our lead review, we identify some potential solutions for these, such as strong high school to college collaboratives, orientation programs that address not only questions for students, but also for families, and to be more intentional with faculty, counselor, and peer connections. And of course, we want to emphasize the importance of having more Latino and Latinx faculty and counselors. We also identify that there are some key transition points that need to be considered in order to promote college persistence. This is the case of the summer melt, right? Students should be able to enroll directly after college and not delay their enrollment after high school, realize and enroll in college before they reach the summer melt processes, which also leads us to delayed, as I said, enrollment after high school and late registration for a semester. There's also this case of financial holds when in some occasions, if you're not able to provide a complete payment of your tuition, then you are not allowed to continue your education, which is something that we've seen across some higher ed institutions. This also leads you to drop out of class and just stop. So given the high school to college partnerships we talked about as a potential solution, we think that there should be some monitoring of these worries about college during summer as students are transitioning from high school to college, particularly those related to financial concerns, and as a consequence, encourage students to enroll immediately. We also believe that it would be important to develop college early warning indicators to address these points and enlist college and mentors advisors to keep tabs on these. And we think that it's very, very important to inform students during high school about counseling and college orientation programs and have access to these critical points. Key issue number 4, and this will not surprise a lot of people, is about understanding college financing. Let's read this quote. I worked almost full-time in college at a retail job to help my family financially at home. This time could have been used to work on my own educational goals, such as pursuing an internship, etc. So in a literature review, we found that Latinx students are more likely to face financial burden, and this has several consequences. First, because of this, they have a lower likelihood of college enrollment and a higher likelihood of going through the summer melt. They are also more likely to have a higher number of hours worked during college and a greater likelihood of attending college only part-time or have a fluctuating status when they're working and studying at the same time. And so all these things together lead to less persistence through college.
Mariana, there was a question on what does summer melt mean? Can you define that?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for letting us know. So summer melt is when students are convinced and they are decided that they want to pursue higher education and in high school as they're graduating. And then that summer before they enroll in college or higher education, they realize or they believe that they won't be able to afford it, and they believe that they won't be able to attend for one reason or whatever. It's mostly related to financial constraints, and therefore it is during that summer before they actually begin college that they decide not to pursue higher education. Yes, so thank you so much for your questions. So as I was mentioning about these financial issues and the less persistent to college, we believe that is why it's very important to promote financial aid, particularly need-based financial aid to Latinx students and their families in order to increase their student success. This leads to more full-time enrollment and fewer working hours, we found out in our lead review. And we do think that even though this has been shown, Latinx students and their families still lack access to financial advising in high school and in college settings. Oftentimes, they're likely to believe that scholarships and funding is only available for students with exceptional grade and abilities, and we should be able to provide information to them that that provides them with the knowledge they need to apply for any type, especially need-based financial aid. Key issue number 5 is about the importance of family and community. And here I'm going to start with 2 quotes. One first from a student, that is, as Latinos in higher education, the stakes are higher for us. It feels like we are not only doing this for ourselves, but for our families, our home countries, and our people. Our need to succeed is great because if we don't, it feels like we will be failing not just ourselves, but our culture. And we also want to highlight a parent coach, a father coach from some fathers of college students. I've always had this intention and aspiration to give myself and my children a better education more than what I acquired. My parents couldn't give me the best education, so I made a promise to myself to always do better. I started communicating these aspirations to them from when they were in elementary, then high school. You're going to do better. You're going to go further in education. You have to get the best. If you have a good education, it gives you a better chance in the community to achieve whatever you feel, whatever your aspiration is. And I think this is very important because it highlights the family and community importance for Latinx in higher education. In our little lit review, we uncover that this comes with 2 strengths. First are the family responsibilities and expectations. It implies sibling caretaking, financial contribution, language and cultural brokering. And this is important because group needs are prioritized over individual needs, oftentimes in our culture as Latinos. Parents' expectation about post-secondary experience are also very important, as we just read from the quote. And we also believe that, well, we also found that whole family is central to making a decision on where to attend college for Latinx students. This quote, I really like the middle part of it. It's like, my mom she's like, get A's, you go to school, get your BA, but she wants us to have like a miracle or something, you know? It's just not gonna happen. I need to do it. She wants me to get A's. She's so happy, but she wants me to do all these other stuff, so she doesn't get it. So this part of like balancing family responsibilities and contributions. On the other hand, there is a great feeling of support from the Latinos families. This is very important because, as you'll see here, it's about, I met with my mom, I wanted to change my major, I met with my mom for apoyo asado, I was sobbing and everything, but she was very calm, so she provided me with emotional support that eventually helped me finish my degree. And we observe the same about the whole community, right? There's been tremendous support from not only just my parents, but extended family as well, especially uncles and aunts, my tios, tias, who always checked up on me, giving me calls, sending me dinner when I needed it to help me stay motivated, stay motivated and stay on track. And in our lit review, actually, we also uncovered that Latinx students report that their families do provide that emotional and social support needed to complete and persist in higher education. Latino students build up family expectations and support in the community college environment. And while sometimes these students report difficulties balancing these expectations, they also have the support. Latinx students report that their parents often misunderstand the college workload and expectations. And this is why we believe that it's important that colleges do this outreach to parents, especially in bilingual languages. So as we can see in this quote, my family is very proud of me because I'm the first one to go off to university. And I think that is important to highlight. That is this sense of community and support. Lastly, in terms of family and community influence in college, we want to acknowledge that there is a conversation and a discussion of how a phenomena observed in the literature about how often Latinos and Hispanic students make their decision on college, not decide to attend a college lower than what they could have attended to, or some conversations of they could have gone to another term of another type of institution than they are. And while we recognize that this is indeed observed in the literature, this is referred to as an undermatch, we also want to recognize that an important reason for this is that Latinos and Hispanic students want to stay closer to home and attend institutions with history of Latinx enrollment and success. These types of institutions of Latinx enrollment and success are the HSIs that there are in the nation. And these are Hispanic serving institutions that have more than 25% of the student population be Hispanic. We have found that these institutions are majority 4-year. They're public institutions. They're both located in urban and suburban areas. And they're very widespread, but they're concentrated in a few states, of which Illinois has 30. And lastly, I'm going to pass it back to Dr. Bates to talk to us about the post-college landscape.
Thank you very much. So this is our last key issue. And while this is not about college enrollment or persistence directly, this is about what happens for our Latino students after college. And we believe this is important to highlight because what you expect that you might get out of college or what you see as the outcomes for your peers who have gone to college might influence your perceptions of college and whether you ultimately enroll or persist. And so what we want to highlight here is that unfortunately, Hispanic students who complete bachelor's degrees, who complete college, are not having the same outcomes as their peers. So this is a study from spring 2020 of bachelor's degree recipients. And we can see that Hispanic students in this sample were less likely to be employed full-time, to be employed at all, or to be continuing their education than their white, Asian, Native, and multiracial peers. So you see the Hispanic percentages and mean starting salary here. And a lot of times when people are talking about these sorts of occupational disparities in occupational outcomes, such as salary gaps or employment gaps, when people are talking about them in terms of race, ethnicity, or gender, they talk about perhaps the major choice or the occupational choice being the reason behind the disparity. And there is some truth to that. You can see in this figure here that Hispanic and Latino workers choose some different industries than overall. But this is not the full explanation. And we want to show another chart here. So these are the median earnings for women and men of different racial ethnic groups, and they separate out men and women in this study because there's earnings disparities by gender as well as by race, ethnicity. And so we can see here that even for those who have the same bachelor's degree, there are vast disparities in earnings. So just for an example, this first line here, these are folks with a bachelor's degree in architecture and engineering. And we see that Hispanic or Latino men make less than their white counterparts. And we see the same for Hispanic and Latino women. And so this goes along through all the majors. So there's something here beyond attainment. And so we want to be clear about that while we encourage students or work to find ways to support students and in going to college and having success in college, we also have to think about the outcomes and building structures and attacking disparities in our society well beyond the college walls. And so now I will turn it back over to Dr. Lopez.
Actually, it's Rebecca Vonderlack Navarro. Sorry about that, Meg. Thanks so much, Meg and Mariana. You guys have been wonderful going through all these findings. It's definitely been fascinating. And I just wanted to share a little bit about next steps for us and how all of you listening can engage in this work. We're going to continue to share these findings. We're set up to go to multiple conferences. Having completed the landscape study, we're now in the process of writing the policy brief, where we're really going to dive into what do we do next, some of these policy directions that are needed to support Latino students' college going and completion. And the forum plans to launch that report in late September. So look forward to that. And we also look forward to beginning partnerships with higher education, advocacy organizations, districts, universities serving Latinos in Illinois, and developing specific initiatives at various levels, including legislative, institutional, community, and family. And we invite you to follow the Latino Policy Forum, our social media platforms, so you can learn how the work evolves and potential opportunity where we can engage together in partnerships. Please visit the forum's website at the latinopolicyforum.org to sign up and keep abreast of the forum news. And finally, we're going to be sharing this presentation. We've got everything recorded today. The recording will be available along with the PowerPoint. And IWERC has been wonderful in creating one-pagers that I think are a great way to kind of summarize and understand all of this rich data. So we're really thankful to have all of you here today. Now, I know there were some questions posed in the chat, and some of them might have been answered privately. I'm having a hard time viewing everything. One of the questions, though, and I'm wondering, I think, Mariana, you might be the best one to answer, was differentiating between how you were referring to catch-up as also limited access to rigorous courses in high school, and how that might differ from time management issues.
I agree. And I think that's a very important question. And I think it's likely a combination of both. I think we did discuss how Latinx students are more likely to be balancing other family responsibilities, part-time jobs and such. So that is part of it. However, we do find consistently in the literature that there is a diminished access as compared to rigorous course taking as compared to other race and ethnic groups. And therefore, while we cannot make any causal claims, we do think that that might be contributing as well. And as we mentioned, and I do want to highlight, there is a study from the consortium that has demonstrated that the SAT scores are related to access to rigorous course taking, at least in Chicago. And so we would like to also refer to that for more information and more details on what are the channels through which this occurs. But yeah, we do find those relations.
Mm-hmm. Mariana, on a different note, can you define cultural brokering?
I am answering that question. Thank you so much. I am gonna stop typing that and just answer. Yeah, so that is when you are talking to your I don't know why I turned on my video, I'm sorry. So that is when you're trying to interpret beyond language some kind of cultural aspect of college making, or it is not just about college, about a culture and a society and how it works different from when your native country is, or your country of origin, or your parents' country of origin, and why that is important to distinguish. So in a lot of ways, as Latinos, we are interpreters and translator to our parents, not just in terms of language, but also in terms of culture, and that is what it means. I was trying to find the actual source from the literature, so I'll post that in the chat in a little bit as soon as I track it down.
That sounds great. We have another question here about engaging parents, and Gudelia, you might be the right person since you conducted focus groups with parents, but any of you are open to answer this. How can we engage parents in ways that are intentional and worthwhile for them? Many of our parents are juggling work, home duties, families, and find it difficult to find the importance of info sessions on college.
So I will tell you that the focus groups that I did with parents, the parents that I spoke to really wanted information, and they were seeking the information from multiple sources, going online or talking to individuals who they knew in education. So I think there is a thirst for it. I do understand that parents have a lot on their plates. And so figuring out the best way to provide information is important. I have been looking at a lot of university websites, and some of them are easy to navigate and others are very complicated. There's a lot of language. And if you are not a speaker of English and you don't read or write it very well, it can be very challenging. So perhaps there are ways to put videos on there for families that are in their own language, not just Spanish, but we're talking about Latinos today, but in multiple languages so they can get a sense of what the campus looks like, what to expect on campus, what their children should be expecting to experience on campus. I think one of the quotes that Mariana brought up during her presentation shows you that there is, quite a bit of of navigating that the student has to do with their families to explain why it is that they have to spend so much time at the library versus coming home and taking care of, helping take care of their siblings or other duties that the family might need them to support. But I do think that the parents are willing and want to learn about how this works. And it's not just the universities that need to do this, but it's also our high school districts.
Mm-hmm. This next question might be good for Meg and Mariana. What kinds of specific challenges do Latinx students at the community college face when compared to Latino students at four-year universities? I don't know if Mariana or Meg, you want to answer?
I wasn't sure if Mariana was jumping in. I mean, I will start and say that there are quite a few similar challenges, and a lot of the qualitative work takes place in one or the other setting, but finds a lot of the similar things like financial issues, navigational issues. The community college, there's quite a rich literature on the sort of lack of alignment between community college expectations and coursework and four-year institutions, so difficulties with transfer. There's actually a specific literature on that for Latino students. So I think it's a very good question. I think the answer is sort of there are very similar challenges, and then there's some literature on specific challenges to the community college world. Mariana, do you want to add to that?
No, I think that is correct. I agree with that. And I would just add that there is currently, when we presented this work a couple weeks ago to a group of stakeholders from the Latino Policy Forum, there was some mention of literature about what happens after transfer and how Latinos are perceived in a four-year college after transfer, and that I would highlight that as an additional barrier that Latinos face when they enroll and they transfer to four-year college.
Was there data collected, or did you find this in the literature review, about differences between first generation versus second generation Latino students attending college?
Yeah, so again, like a lot of this work is qualitative, where potentially they're focusing solely on first generation students, and so there's not really a comparison group. But I think largely we found that some of the navigational issues that Mariana went through as one of the key issues, they are more burdensome for the first generation student.
There's some questions here about English language learners, current and former English language learners, and how does lack of English proficiency or having been raised in a bilingual setting affect college enrollment, along with persistence and graduation compared to monolingual Latino peers?
Yeah, so this is a very important issue. And I think the first thing I want to emphasize is at the high school level, for the readiness, we actually see in the literature that former ELs are as prepared or more prepared than students who were never ELs. Students who are current ELs at the time of their junior or senior year in high school have lower graduation rates and lower overall readiness indicators for college. But again, I want to emphasize quite positively that former ELs have very strong readiness for college. Unfortunately, so there is a bit of a literature on ELs in college, and there are case studies of colleges that are dual language or bilingual, and the successes that they've had with Latino students. There's not a robust literature specifically about the experiences of ELs in college as much as we would hope, just because the designation is lost when one enters college. So we don't have good data on, how do ELs do in college and beyond. That is something that we're very interested at IWERC and potentially with the forum and exploring further.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Stay tuned, because that's exciting. Could you all talk a bit more about, and I think this is a great question, what the literature says about Latinx students' preferences for staying close to home? And then what could that tell us for enrolling in college? And I know personally, I'm thinking about what could that mean in terms of policy?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things here. It was a very quick slide that Mariana talked through on undermatch and that phenomenon. And so, but the reason I bring that up is there have been a couple of large scale studies of student college choice in particular states and the factors that ultimately influence students to apply to or enroll in different institutions. And that controls for things like their high school course taking and potential readiness. And what we see is that Latino students do uniquely, quote unquote, undermatch, which is elect to enroll or enroll in or apply to institutions for which they are overqualified. And when they've done statistical analyses of the factors that might influence this, two pieces have come out. And one is location, just closeness to home, that indeed the Latino students' search for college is on average closer to home than other searches. And also then they appear to limit more to colleges that have a history of serving the Latino population. And so we do see a preference for being closer to home and attending HSIs. That's in the quantitative as well as qualitative literature. And then what we also see in some of the qualitative literature, which we didn't present today, but I think is very important, is that particularly for-profit institutions, but different kinds of institutions will often locate closer to predominantly Latino neighborhoods to encourage enrollment there. So there's a location influence kind of in both directions. Latino students choosing to go closer to home overall on average than other students, and then institutions taking advantage of that and positioning themselves close to Latino neighborhoods.
Great. This next question, I know you all have thought about this and we just didn't have enough time to include it. So I'm so thankful there's a question about Hispanic serving institutions. What kind of data or literature you read around that issue? What kind of takeaways there might be?
Yeah, so I think there's really rich information on HSIs at Excellencia in Education. They do a review of Hispanic serving institutions every year. And I mean, I think that one thing we found in our literature review, I think that is really important, is just because you're an institution with the designation of Hispanic serving does not necessarily mean that you're doing a great job serving Hispanic students. So some scholars have recreated the nomenclature around this to talk about the institutions that are truly inclusive to Latino students, designed for Latino students instead of simply having that designation, which really is based on percentage of Latino students enrolled in institution.
Mm-hmm. There's a question about the effects of citizenship status, or lack thereof, and how that impacts college enrollment and completion.
Yeah, I can go ahead and answer that. And so we have found very limited information on that precisely because these are questions that in a lot of cases data cannot be publicly available or has not been made publicly available. There are some ways to go around that in terms of people that or students that are enrolled under the DREAM Act. However, the data is limited and we have not been able to track down these statistics more specifically.
There's a question here about kind of institutional cultures within higher ed, and it's asking what levers of structural or institutional change might exist in higher education to affirm the value of communal support in Latino culture, particularly as many spaces in academia tend to prioritize individualism and solo learning.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing it's really difficult in a format like this to get into the success stories that are out there. And as we were doing this review, we came across so many individual programs and initiatives at universities that are doing a wonderful job at this. Creating peer networks is a very critical activity that institutions do to support not just Latino students, but other students of color as well. There are specific initiatives addressing exactly the navigational issues that Mariana walked through at different levels. I mean, intrusive advising and activities like that are very supportive of creating cultures that can lead to success. So I think it's just, unfortunately, a limitation of the time that we can't get into the flip side of what we presented today, which is just really great individual examples of supportive cultures created at colleges.
We've got one more question here to kind of close us out. Is there data or literature that you read that considers the success of students that can do coursework at locations within community settings that are easily accessible to the Latino community? So this could be courses at community agencies, faith institutions.
That's a fantastic question, and that did not come up in our research review.
But we know accessibility is a big deal, especially when they want to stay close to home. Well, this has been a wonderful, rich conversation. And to everyone that's here today, please know there's more to come. We're going to be putting together policy directions, having our launch event in the fall, and rolling up our sleeves and getting to work after understanding all this great context. So thank you so much to everyone that attended today. And we'll have the recording posted on our website along with the PowerPoint. And IWERC has made these great one-pagers for a follow-up. So thanks to everyone, and we'll be in touch.